866-594-4150. We've got some calls coming in. Should we get right to them?
We like calls.
Might as well start with that. That's what our goal is always to be answering questions.
The interaction.
Mm-hmm. So let's get right to it. Kyle, you're on the Under the Hood show. What can we do for you?
Hi, you guys helped me last year with a simple problem on my 14 F-150 that ended up being just a fuse, and I hope you can fix this problem just as easily.
Well, that's
always the hope. Yeah.
Baseball players get paid a lot of money if they hit a high percentage.
Right.
We don't get paid anything, and our percentage is pretty good.
I think so.
Yeah, Russ's is at least. Mine's a little less.
As a group, I take us all as a group.
As a group,
yeah,
I think we're pretty good, but I'm not right in the same category. All right, give it a shot.
All right, I have faith. So my daughter has an 09 Santa Fe Limited, the all-wheel drive 3.3, and we've had it for about 4 years. And the transmission, only when it gets really warm, it like slips between third and fourth gear. So we drove it like that for 3 years, and I finally said, well, it's probably done enough damage at this point. I found a really good transmission on Car Dash Parts over by Minneapolis.
Sure.
And put that in, and now it's doing the exact same thing, right between third and fourth. So I'm thinking it's got to be a computer issue, don't you think?
Did you put the computer in it that came with the transmission that you put into the car, or did it come with the computer bolted to the side of the transmission?
No, there was no computer. I think from what I read online, it's like the engine ECU and the transmission is all in one, if I read it right.
This one doesn't have, because it depends on which engine you have in there. It does not have a bolt-on ECU on the side of your trans?
Think that one does.
Okay.
I got to think about that, Russ, but I don't think that one does.
You got a 2.4 in there?
No, it's 3.3 V6.
You've got the V6?
Yeah.
Okay. If you got the V6, then it's part of it's ECM. I would flash that ECM because any memory that's in there from the old transmission will be in there in the new one. It's going to be trying to adjust for that pressures and all that. So you're going to need to reflash that. Otherwise, what I'm saying about the ones with the bolt-on computer, the ECM on the side of the trans, we take those. Most auto recycling yards now have got into the same practice of they keep that with the transmission, so it's already has those learned values. You don't have to program it. You just put it in, you're good to go, golden. But with the ECU, we have to flash those or with the scan tool, sometimes we can erase the old memory and clear the adapters, get it to relearn. But that's the best way to do it. Prolonged use without changing that can hurt the transmission, but what you're having, it might just be a relearn.
And is that something that, like, if it was at your shop with it being a Hyundai, is that something that you guys would be able to do with your computers, or you think it has to go to Hyundai?
That's going to have to go to Hyundai because their software, you can purchase it in the aftermarket, but it's really expensive and it's not used very often except for in a case like this. So most shops don't subscribe to it because it would not be a profitable thing. They would lose money on everyone they did. So
if they weren't a specialized Hyundai Kia shop
or a transmission shop that does a lot of Hyundai Kias, most of the transmission shops I know personally don't do enough of those. Even if they're rebuilding 500 to 1,000 transmissions a year, so few of them are Hyundai Kias that they wouldn't
typically
do it.
On a Hyundai or a Kia, the engine dies long before the transmission goes bad.
Yeah.
but the one you have, I believe that 09 33 is not one that's on that hit list that we sell thousands of.
Right.
Thousands is an exaggeration, but a lot.
Give me a percentage on the odds of this fixing my problem being the exact same thing as the last transmission.
Probably about 30 to 40%, somewhere in that area. Because when we see this transmission fail, which is rare, we've done 2 of these in the last, let me see, it was before COVID, so I'm just going to say 4 years. We've put 2 of these in. But if you took the rest of our transmissions, we've probably done 200 other transmissions
other types
in those years. So maybe 300. So that's very low. They just don't fail that often. But when they do fail, we start to see them slip between not just one gear, but any gear between first and second or third or fourth.
Did you replace it yourself, or have a friend or a shop, or who did the replacement?
I had a shop do it, and like say it only does it when it's hot, and it only does it like right at 25 miles per hour when you're like
And
letting off the pedal, and so the
we-
engine's not like under a lot of pressure. It
Yeah,
just
we
wants
should
to
ask just a
work
couple
for
more
economy.
questions here, just to make sure. We kind of jumped into that, and I agree with what
Correct
Russ
fluid.
said.
That's
Yep.
important because it can get kind of tricky. We usually just put the Hyundai fluid right in it, so we don't have weird issues. Make sure if the fluid is not burnt, doesn't have a
That's
burnt
what I wanted to
smell
know
it.
is the one that they took out. Did
Yep.
he make any comments about what the condition of the fluid was when they drained it or anything?
No, because I had changed the fluid on that one too, hoping that would fix the problem. And then when I had him put this one in, I put all new fluid in there also.
The transmission that when you flushed it, when it was having the problem, did you get the sense that it was burnt, stinky, very discolored, or did it seem like pretty normal, maybe just typical discoloration from age?
I think it was a little burnt, because my daughter's driving with the radio blasted, and she can't hear that the engine's at 4,000 RPMs and it's not going anywhere.
Yeah. And how many miles were on the vehicle when you took the tranny out of it?
110,
And how many miles were on the transmission that you bought?
61,000, and they had verification in the
Yeah.
car there and everything.
Yeah, no, you get the VIN number. You can check all that stuff nowadays. It's awesome. Yeah, that should be. I'm gonna really go back to what Russ said. Just make sure that system is working properly. Make sure all the electronic communications is working right. You don't have any check engine lights or flashing shift knobs or anything like that that'd be trying to tell you a code. But third, fourth is a weird one because you're going to usually have a problem.
And it's lower torque at that, and I might even, before I totally condemn the thing, if the fluid's not burnt, I'd flash it, see what it does, and then I might just throw a solenoid in it and try to work the valve and the valve body for that gear just a little bit, because if it's not getting all the pressure right away, it's going to slip, and that might fix it.
That's its way of saying, you know what, I don't have what I need to be in this gear. I've got to go to the other gear.
Yep.
And then it kind of tries to choose in between.
It's like a manual trans. If you go shift from third gear to fourth and then you let the clutch out 3/4 of the way and you just keep your foot riding on it, it's going to slip and not really go into gear. It'd be the exact same thing. So you want more pressure in there, good solenoid, good valve operation to let the clutch all the way out.
All right, thanks, guys.
Thanks,
You bet.
Kyle. Thanks very much.
I really wanted to get a better slam dunk for the way he came in on that call.
Well, I just want to make sure that he didn't replace a transmission he didn't have to. That was what was worrying
Well,
me.
I think he probably burned up the other one with the problem.
And I do think, too, I asked my daughter, just like Kyle the other day, I said, wow, does your car always make that noise? And she said, I've never heard my car, not once. Every time I get in, I turn on music. She said, I don't think I've ever heard that
Yeah, that's
noise.
the air pump.
I don't
heard
know
it.
if I've ever heard anything on my
It
car.
didn't do it when I started it up and pulled it in, but
Oh,
it
really?
did it after
Okay.
I changed the oil and pulled it out.
And that's normal?
Yeah.
Okay. We're going to take a break. When we come back, we want to hear from you. 866-594-4150. You're listening to the Under the Hood Show.
Be sure to visit our website for news, contests, and previous shows at underthehoodshow.com. Welcome back, everybody. It's time to get back under the hood with the Motor Medics.
866-594-4150. Let's go to California now and talk to Jim. You're on the Under the Hood Show. Jim, what can we do for you?
Hey, good morning, guys. How are you all doing?
Fantastic.
Great. You've helped me with my my Ford F350 diesel, a 6-liter, and I've been fixing it right along. But I think it's time for me to move on to instead of a truck and truck camper to a Class A motorhome.
Okay.
And I haven't had a lot of feedback on the 7.3 Godzilla engine and the reliability of that. Yeah.
Well, I just think it's commendable that you want to go from one vehicle that breaks down a lot to another vehicle
Right.
that has the potential to break
Break
down
down
a
a
lot.
lot.
Way more money, right?
Oh, no.
Not the motor itself so much as just having a Class A motorhome. How new is it?
Well, it's got that
I'm
motor
looking
in
at
it.
a 2023 or 2024, a new one.
Yeah.
The newer version of the what is it? The F
550?
F 550.
Yeah. if
No,
it's-
the F53 chassis.
Okay. If it's got the Godzilla motor in it, it's going to be a 23, 24 motorhome or 5.
Yeah, he said it's 23, 24. Yeah, the early there was some early crank issues with the Godzillas in heavy
Lifters.
in heavy service and lifters.
It's a metal problem.
But that was back when they first started coming out with those. I have got a ton of guys I know that are buying those to put into hot rods that are the Ford guys. And they just really, really like that engine. It's kind of in the name of what they're calling it. How can you not like it?
That and the Chevy engine going with the
6.6, cast iron
gas,
blocks, big strong torque motors.
I don't know. I mean, it's the, I don't know. It's almost the gas electric battle thing where it's like, do you want a diesel? Do you want a gas? I want gas. I'll never get a diesel, or other way around. I'll always have a diesel, never have a gas. But you know what kind of miles per gallon you get with a 6.6 gas towing heavy, or that motorhome with this motor in it? I'm like, but overall, this would be a tough one for me. I'd have to see how many miles I'm going to put on it, because if you're putting a ton of miles on it, I'd really go with a diesel in that thing if you're going to get something like that. But if you're only going to put on, let's say, 5,000 miles a year, you might want to go with the gas, because the cost of repairs less, maintenance less, reliability better, I think.
What's the warranty they put on that chassis in a Class A motorhome? What do they put on there?
224?
The engine, a bumper to bumper is a year, 12 months, 12,000 miles for the whole unit, the motorhome and all its components. But I think it's a 3-year, 36,000 mile
on the drivetrain,
and then there's drivetrain.
I just didn't know how they did that I've never looked at buying a new Class A motorhome. If they, typical heavy duty applications have less length warranty. That's just for our listeners to know than, it used to be they were playing the warranty war. And I would not be surprised if some of that doesn't come back now that we're starting to see a more competitive marketplace with lots of inventory sitting around. You're starting to see, of course, I paid attention having a Bronco, but now they're offering $7,000 off of sticker here locally on Broncos, and they got them lined up on the lots. Just the market's changed. Supplies are catching up. The stuff is changing. Right. So you're probably same thing on the camper motorhome world. It used to be here 2 years ago. You could not get easily a new camper, a new motorhome, and the used stuff was going crazy. So at some point they'll probably start lengthening some of that, but from a heavy-duty application, Russ has hit the nail on the head. If you're going to be out on the highway a lot and you're going to be putting a lot of miles on, you look at the cost of fuel and the torque and reliability. I think the heat that's generated in those Class A motorhomes and just the way that they I don't know, just historically. And if we're painting a bad brush for people in the motorhome industry, I'm sorry, but just historically, those medium-duty type Class A motorhomes, if they're getting to be 4, 5 years old, 6 years old, they start to just really nickel and dime people to death. Now, I've got a cousin that had one that he bought that was a nightmare. I had another cousin that bought one, and they bought it, and they went everywhere with it and never had a problem. They just did their general maintenance. And so I'm more concerned just about the Class A motorhome historically when they get older. But if you're just going to own it in warranty and you're going to drive it a limited amount of miles, that gas would be great. Just plan on paying for a little fuel. What do they rate that at fuel economy wise? Do they even show it on this? Is there even a sticker?
No sticker, but people are generally getting somewhere between 8 and 10 when they're not towing a car behind it and downhill and in the wind.
Yeah, because they'll jump down to. I'm sure they'll jump into 5 to 7 when they start torquing and pulling a little bit.
Yeah.
But that's reasonable because I bet that same vehicle with a 6.7 diesel in it, let's say you get 8 to 10 with the gas engine, I bet you're going to get 11 to 13 with the diesel, and look at the premium you're going to pay to buy the diesel and the maintenance you're going to pay on that. So like I said, less miles, gas.
Right. So my 6-liter F350 with a Lance camper on the back has been getting 11 to 12 for 20 years.
That's what our guys get with their 6 liters that are built up really heavy in our shop, pulling big campers.
Yeah. Well, that's appreciated. I'm still, I haven't pulled the trigger yet. I'm not buying it today, but the prices are coming down, and that engine seems to be unknown in some ways. But
no, they've been using that engine in the pickup applications and in the commercial applications, and There was some early reports, but like Russ said, I think some of that was just like other GMs with lifters. There was throughout COVID, the supply chain got really messed up, and metal supplies sat in warehouses, sat outside. Things got compromised. People started getting supplies from different veins than they normally did, and the supply chains just got messed up. And I think they're internally, people have realized, because they've had to pay the price of what they had to do then to get a product out. And I would guarantee you they're trying to rectify that and bring back their tried and true suppliers and processes and people and all of that.
Jim, thanks very much for the call. Good luck. I'm going to just record. I'm going to take a recording of this call. And every time I have the idea to send you guys a picture going, what about this motorhome? What do you think of this? I'm just going to listen to this call, and then I won't text you guys and ask you if I should get a motorhome at all.
But you see them driving down the road every summer. They're everywhere. But if you drive by, if you have a practice like we do sometimes of driving by the repair shop area of the world, there's usually a pretty long line of motorhomes sitting outside during the summertime that are broken.
Uh-huh. And I will say this, when I've asked you guys about it, I don't know why I keep asking, because I've never gotten a different answer. It's always the same answer.
Hey, I just watched Meet the Millers. I hadn't watched that for a while. We were in a hotel room and it happened to be on, and they had a great time in their motorhome. So, but guess what? During the show, what happened? It broke.
Robin Williams RV.
866-594-4150. Let's go to Pennsylvania and talk to Art. You're on the Under the Hood Show. Art, what can we do for you?
Good morning, guys. Thanks for having the show and answering my questions. I have two unrelated questions to ask you guys. One is a 2007 Ford F-250. I haven't got a chance to lay my hands on it yet, but it's a crank, no start. Any suggestions or anything that might be common about that era? I've worked with older ones where you used to have the module used to fail on the distributor, but this is much newer.
So this must be a 5.4 F-250?
I believe so, yes.
Gas motor?
It's definitely V8.
Well,
yes.
The most common on all of those, like above everything else we see, is a fuel problem caused by the electronic fuel module, which is located in the back of the vehicle above the spare tire area. And if it's a motorhome chassis, above the axle area. If it's a van chassis, above the axle area. So basically you get it. It's back in the back.
The pickup.
Then it's just a little square box above that spare tire area. Dorman Products, our partner, sells this thing, and it's a fuel pump control module. And what happens is you get a rust-through problem in the back of it, either road salt, just mud if you're in the southern states or eastern states without salt, but it'll rust through the back, it'll short the board out, and it's dead. So they make the Dorman Products one stands off of the frame just a little bit to give an air gap in there to keep it cleaner and dried out. So that's the first place we would go, because really on these things, the no start is either a crankshaft sensor is gone or we have a problem with that fuel pump module. But the fuel pump module outweighs the crank sensor like 50-1. We do a lot of those.
Art, I'm going to have you hold on for a second. We're going to take a break. When we come back, we'll answer your second question. If we got this one taken care of
I feel
already.
pretty good about what Russ said on that one for sure.
All right, we'll come back, Art.
Pretty common thing.
You stay where you are. We're going to take a break. You're listening to the Under the Hood Show. The phone number to reach us, 866-594-4150. 866-594-4150. That's the number to reach us here at the Under the Hood Show. Don't forget, you can watch our show on our YouTube channel. And if you subscribe to the YouTube channel and join the Hoodie Fan Club at underthehoodshow.com, you could win a hoodie.
Like Tim Delaney, congratulations from our friends over at Universal Technical Institute. Find them at uti.edu. That's the place where you can go to get automotive training so you can get a lucrative career started today, with campuses all across the United States, some in very beautiful, they're all in beautiful areas, but some even more beautiful than others. You could be in Houston, you could be in Orlando, right there. You could go into marine mechanics if you want. You don't have to be just a car mechanic at Universal Technical Institute. You can be in pretty much an anything mechanic. If it has wheels, if it has an engine, if it has a prop or...
I want to be a marine mechanic and learn how to fix a mechanical shark.
Oh, yeah, that'd be good.
You could do
Talked
it.
about that before.
You could do it. All right.
I would think that would be a limited skill set, but maybe not.
Just
They're
thinking.
probably all CGI now. Don't you
Tim
think?
Delaney sounds like someone. That's a name that you feel like you might know. That
A couple
if I said to
weeks
you,
ago.
I wonder if that,
I know a Delaney.
if you said, "Is that the same Tim Delaney?" I think that would automatically put a thought in everyone's head.
Everybody remembers
I
the
had
movie
one.
Yeah.
Jaws, of course, the mechanical shark in
Sure.
Jaws, how big that thing was.
Yeah.
A couple weeks ago, they spotted a great white shark off the coast of Martha's Vineyard, of all places, a hungry shark, that was larger than that, a real shark.
Well,
You should Google that.
Well,
Chris.
when I jumped into the
Great white.
Natural Science Museum when I was out in D.C., they have a replica of Phoenix, the great. Well, that's a right whale, huge.
Oh, that's a whale. This is a great
Yeah.
white shark.
Oh, yeah.
They
shark.
said there was one called Deep Blue out in Hawaii
Yeah, I've heard of
that
Deep
was
Blue.
just smaller than this one, but this one was a monster. I can't imagine that movie Jaws where it's eating the back of the boat.
Oh,
You're gonna need a bigger boat.
You know what I think we can do with sharks to make? We could probably just tell orcas to protect us, and they would. I think
Yeah.
orcas are just like people. I think they're just orcas are.
if they're just like people, can we pay them for protection?
Yeah, that's what I mean. Yeah. Hey, we got some
Unless they eat
fish
their
for
trainer.
you. Yeah, that happens too. That's when they get mad. You gotta
I miss Shamu.
make it a thing. You gotta make it a partnership. All right, let's go back to Art in Pennsylvania. Art, let's have question 2. Did question 1 go your way?
I'd like to ask some clarification, please, on question 1 with the F-250.
Nope. You
And
gotta
that
go to
is
question 2. No.
Fuel
No, yeah, go ahead.
pump control module controls
So
the
if
power
I
of the
turn the
pump.
key on and hear the pump run,
hmm
is that module ruled out, or it still could be the issue?
No, if you
No, but
hear the
the
pump
start-
run, you test and make sure you have fuel pressure. That would eliminate the module because the module just controls the fuel pressure itself. So if you hear it run and you've got fuel pressure, you can forget about that. Then you need to go check your spark.
Now, as I say,
We should ask him that first, maybe.
Right.
I have an antique, I have an antique way of checking spark since I can't see the light. I use a clothespin with a coaxial cable going to a speaker amplifier, and I crank the engine over here, go tick, 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 I got spark. So if the crank system is bad, I would have no spark.
Right? You would not. And you could also see if the tack is moving.
Okay.
Sometimes that'll give you a good indication of what's going on.
Okay, I will check that out Saturday. Now,
I think
question number
he
2,
really
we'll
wanted
go
to
back
tell us
further.
about his old school way of checking spark because
I think, yeah, he was,
I think that's what that was.
Mhm.
A little humble brag there about his method. I haven't heard anybody say that
Well,
for
I
a
can't see
long
the
time.
flash, so okay, so the second vehicle, 1985 GMC Brigadier. I got involved putting head gaskets on it, and they're like, "Oh yeah, while you're at it, it's only got 53,000 original miles."
You say it's a
But
Brigadier
nevertheless,
motorhome?
they said, "While you're
Medium duty truck.
no, it's a truck.
Okay.
Yep, medium duty truck. It's got a 3208 Caterpillar diesel.
Okay.
I'm an old school diesel guy, so that was no big deal putting head gaskets on that. But they said, "Oh, by the way, the Allison transmission's not shifting right." I've never messed with that. They're saying like, basically you take off and it like immediately tries to go up to 5th gear on its own. And any suggestions of what I can look at on the Allison automatic?
Oh boy, I've only messed with one of those ever, and somebody else did it, and it had a transmission problem. It was in a car hauler that a guy had, and it was pretty new.
This one
would
would
have been
be
like 80.
I think this is pre-electronics on this
It
one.
is. This would have been like 1989.
Oh yeah, it is.
So it was just a few years old. But when you get one, if it's an 85 and somebody got it back when cars actually came out the year they were made, so if they would have purchased that, let's say in March of 85, by 89, this thing was basically an antique, a car hauler 4 years old. Now we have them 10 years old and they're still great with 200, 300,000 miles. But back then, 50,000 miles on that thing, it's on its last legs unless somebody's working on it. But if I remember right, that had a hard mechanical governor in that transmission that could be taken apart and cleaned, because I remember we popped a cover off of that and they took it apart and we soaked that thing and cleaned it up and got it to work and put it back together, because it was, the wings of it were sticking out all the time. It would not go back, and had a little broken spring on it too. But and I'm just guessing because that's kind of what I'm remembering of what that was. But I would look up, just get on there and Google Allison transmission mechanical governor and see if anything pops up, because I bet it will, because that's an oldie. I think that one was just a 3-speed Allison. It's not a lot to it.
It's a 5.
Is it a 5?
It's a 5.
Check that
Yes.
out and see.
5-speed.
They put them in school buses too. They put them in a lot of the school buses had that same transmission. But that's the only one I ever worked with, and I worked with somebody else that actually knew what they were doing. That was a long time ago. I could care less about the big heavy stuff at the time, but
It's probably like
did.
Is that like a 3000 series or a 2000 series, Allison? Do you know?
I don't know that. I say I've worked on those engines with a lot of Allisons behind them growing up as a kid, but we didn't deal with transmissions. I just dealt with engine stuff.
Well, they didn't
They're
break
out there
much.
No,
popular.
historically, the transmissions, those Allisons, they earned their name in that era
Mm-hmm.
because
Even when you say it, it's
they just didn't break. That was when people were starting to decide whether or not. I think of our own little fleet that we had in the early part of our salvage yard. We had the car haulers, the slide back, roll back trucks, the Jaredans, the Centuries, whatever they might happen to be, and we always had manual transmissions. And I remember working with our driver Leroy. Just love Leroy, but at the time he was driving that truck sometimes, and Danny Foster and others, and like, oh, we can't. That automatic will never hold up. We can't do that. And they were starting to switch over in those to automatics. And boy, after that switch occurred, nobody wanted to go back
to manuals.
And then the automatics just kept getting better and better. And the heavy duties, though, is the thing. They were there first, and they learned in the buses, the semi trucks, how to make that automatic stuff be real strong. And that's where Allison earned its name.
Art, thanks very much for the call. Good luck. 866-594-4150. Let's go to California and talk to Trucker Joe. Hey, Trucker Joe, welcome to the Under the Hood Show. Good to hear from you.
How you guys doing out there, man?
Fantastic, Joe.
We're rocking it.
Yep.
All right. Working on a 1990 Chevy Silverado 5.7, 150,000 miles on it. Had it out and about last weekend, come up to a light, and the idle jumps up and drops down. I thought it was going to die, didn't. Got it home. And it's been doing that ever since. The only thing I did to it on Sunday, I've noticed the fuel pump is kind of dying, so I swapped that out, and that still hasn't changed anything. Thoughts and opinions.
Trucker Joe, good to hear from you, by the way.
How you doing, bro?
Very good. I would like to just know why this 90 Silverado that you have, with the way you have your penchant for cars, why is that not a Silverado 454 SS? That's what I really expected you to say, that you had acquired a 454 SS. That's what I expected out of this call.
You guys got to go to work.
No, not yet.
Okay.
One of these days.
Well, they've gotten to be a bit of an icon. I think our former Brownie, our host there, he had the formerly fastest.
He still has it.
Silverado in Hawaii. Now it's in South Dakota, so he's still fast, but
Nice.
They were never as fast as they thought they were.
Unless you did some work to him.
Yeah, I would think that this, Russ, I hear you tell
I have
people.
the air cleaner flip.
Yeah, I hear people tell. I hear Russ tell people a lot. We call that cow chasing mode. That the distributors would go bad in them.
Oh yeah, that was a big problem on the throttle body engines. The magnets would lose their magnetism, and that would change the dwell on the distributor and cause them to run funny. And does this thing still have a EGR valve on it?
Yeah, everything is pretty much stock on this bad boy.
It could either be leaking by it, or it could have a problem with the vacuum control solenoid on it. So I would unplug it and stick a golf tee in there in the vacuum line first, because that's fast check, and see if it goes away. But don't tell anybody you did it, and don't drive too far, because I know you're in California. They could probably smell that a mile away and chase you down for driving with a golf tee in your emission system. But yeah, if that goes away, then you're going to need to put an EGR valve on it and the EGR valve controls solenoid. Those were the biggest tell on those were if you put it in reverse and the idle goes up and down and then it dies. That's when it really did it. And I really didn't get an explanation, or I haven't figured it out why it did it in reverse more than drive. But you give it just a little bit of gas when you're starting to back up. I think it's because of the increased load, because the reverse gear is equivalent to second gear on that. So it would put a little more load and cause it to die, because you could get it to die forward as well if you held the brake just a little bit and gave it just a tiny amount of gas. It would, and the idle then would try to increase to compensate for the dying. So check that first. But if you own one of these things, I just stick a distributor in them right away, because I don't want them to fail on me, because that's leave you on the side of the road item once they get old, for sure. Yeah. And find the best distributor you can get, because there's some really crappy ones out there. There's some really, really crappy ones out there that are like $80, and they're just not very good. But when you're looking for a better one, compare them, because they might be different manufacturers and might be twice the money. But look at the part number. If they have the same identical part number and the address of the company that makes them is the same, they're the same distributor. Okay. They're just getting twice the money for them.
They got better marketing.
Yeah, exactly. So you just got to look. I mean, if you can find an AC Delco one, that's the way to go. Even if you could find an older one that hadn't been running, they hold their magnetism just fine. So occasionally you can find a new old stock on eBay or something that's never been installed. That would be the really sweet way to go. You can buy a new module, you can buy a new pickup coil, but you can't buy a new magnet for the center shaft.
Good point. Yeah.
So if you could buy a brand new center shaft off of eBay that had never been used, that was an AC Delco, and then put it in your distributor, you'd be fine too.
Joe, thanks very much for the call. Good luck. 866-594-4150. We had a conversation online recently about why do car manufacturers don't make them like they used to with their style. They used to come out and be different styles every time. This truck is why they don't do that anymore. Because this truck is 35 years old, and it looks 8 years old, 10 years old.
Looks like my truck.
Yeah, it looks fine. But a 55 Chevy didn't look like a 57 Chevy. You know what I mean?
Ooh, you're right. That's a big change.
We're going to take a break. When we come back, we want to hear from you. 866-594-4150. You're listening to the Under the Hood Show.
With over 2,000 episodes and over 200 stations, Under the Hood has the knowledge to make your car feel good. This is Under the Hood.
866-594-4150. That's the number to reach us here at the Under the Hood Show. Let's talk to Wayne. You're on the Under the Hood Show. Wayne, what can we do for you?
Well, I've got a GMC Canyon that had some issues. Some warning lights come on, and it turned out to be the BCM. And the shop replaced that. It's a very low mileage vehicle. It went in with 30,000 miles on it. It came out with 194,000. Is there anything that can be done about that?
Yeah, they need to fix it.
Did they put in a new BCM?
They couldn't get a new one and got it remanufactured or a used one.
Yeah.
So you have the proof of the mileage it had before, right? This has been like recorded and as you've driven this thing.
It's on the repair bill for replacing the BCM.
Right. And then if you can go back and look, you'll have, like, if you go, there's a place called Carfax Shop, which we subscribe to, and well, it's free. And it shows like the record of the mileage. If you've got a 30,000 mile 2011 Canyon, that makes it worth significantly more than a 100,000 mile or 120,000 mile Canyon. And they could only find a remanufactured one. So I understand that. That's not the shop's fault because a new one's not available. But I would not settle as the driver and owner of this truck for that many miles. So I would, say, hey, first, let's say this is me and I've done this. You come to me and say, look, I had this put in. I understand it's got this many miles on it. either you give me the name and a number of these people so I can contact them that rebuilt this, or you do it, and let's find out what they did, and let's make sure that they can change the miles in this, because apparently, so you've got different kind of remanufacturers out there.
Yeah,
you've
that's
got
what
ones that
this one bothers me.
You've got ones that tear down, fix anything that's wrong, and sell them to you with the corrected mileage. They have the computer equipment to correct mileage to get your exact mileage. That's where you want to go. They also have people that will buy up all the cores they can get their hands on as cheap as they can from not regular reputable auto recyclers like we have here, like we are. They'll just buy them anywhere they can get them, and then they'll put them out there for sale, and they'll sell them. And if they sell 10 of them and one of them happens to be bad, well, they'll just give them their money back and say, well, here's a different one, because they got them so cheap. So they're basically just selling an old used part they don't know where it came from. But then again, you have the good ones that are going to take this module, they're going to take it apart, inspect everything that commonly fails, resolder, replace whatever's bad in it, and then they will plug it into their computer and they will change the mileage, or they'll take out the chip in it. That is, they can sometimes you send yours in, and if they say, oh, this thing's fried, they take out the chip that holds the mileage, they solder it into the new one, and back it goes to you. But whatever you do, you've got to, do you still have your original one? Do they have that, or did they send it in as a core?
They changed it out, and when they couldn't correct the mileage on the one they put in, they tried to reinstall the original BCM.
Yep.
And they balled that up. They've had it for another 3 days since this, and I don't know what's going on.
Okay. Well, the original BCM may have failed, but just don't lose. What I'm saying is don't lose it. Hang on to that baby, whatever you do. And if you've got it and the truck is running with the new mileage one, find another company, even if you do it yourself, that can take your old one and repair it or get you a new one with the same miles, because they're out there. There are companies that can do that BCM. We've had it done.
Well, that's what I thought, but I told them right off. When I got home and I saw what I had for mileage on the thing, I took it straight back.
Yeah.
And I reamed them a good one, because I figure they took at least $10,000 worth of value off that.
Yeah. Well, it's and I feel for them a little, because it's not. I mean, they should help you out, but they weren't able to get their hands on a new part, so they kept your truck running. Although the mileage is different, but they should still help you out, even though it's not their fault. But they should have been very clear with you. If I plugged in a used BCM and all of a sudden they went, this says 194, I'd say, all right, Wayne, hey, I just fixed this thing. It says 194. Drive it, because it's safe to drive and everything's operating now, but I'm going to hang on to your original BCM because something's not right. We're going to find you a company that can fix yours or change this mileage to match, because that's no way that's going to work in this Canyon, because now you went from a Canyon that was worth this to worth something.
Quick question for you, Russ. When you guys have gotten remanufactured BCMs, isn't it very unusual that it would have any miles in it?
It would have 0, and when I plug it in, it's going to match whatever the truck had. It's going to switch to that mileage.
Yeah,
but if it has higher mileage on it, no, it usually goes a bad way. But we use people like our partner Dorman Products. When I get a new instrument cluster and things like that, I have to sign a sworn mileage statement that says this vehicle had 32,000 miles actual, however many hours. Here's the VIN. We send it in. They send us a programmed unit that is ready to go with the exact miles, and that's what we do. But I think there's a solution for this.
Where's
can
the
definitely
disconnect here? Is it the shop just hasn't done this? What?
No, I don't think there's a disconnect. They looked for a product. It wasn't available, so they got what they could to keep this customer's vehicle running. Now, here's the other thing, too. If you have proof of the mileage, and it's documented by the shop that the odometer says 194, but you can prove for a fact that this had 30,000 miles, if you go to sell it, you really haven't lost any value, because you can still prove to the purchaser, I have
if you're doing a casual sale and you can talk that through.
Right. And if they go to Carfax shop,
if it goes to a dealership
they will see that the odometer jumped from 30 to 194. They will see that.
What I would do in this case myself is that I think Russ hit it on the head. They were trying to get you a part. It went wrong. Document the miles when it went in. Keep track of the miles as you're driving with the higher mileage one in there until the solution is available to get a new one with 0 and get it back to where it needs to be. This is solvable.
For sure.
Don't settle. And you don't have to be a butt about it. It's just simple. Hey, you guys got to fix this. You guys just devalued my vehicle by a lot of money.
There's a way that it can be done, and they should be able to get on the phone with the people that they purchased it from and say, this is unacceptable. It won't work. At the very least, give us our money back for that product, and we're
going to try again somewhere else.
We're going to go somewhere else. I mean, it can be. There's a solution for almost everything out there.
Wayne, thanks very much for the call. Good luck. That just sounds awful because
it can be fixed, but you shouldn't.
Yeah.
With that low of mileage, I'd never do it. If this thing had 120 and now it said 194, I wouldn't worry about it. But this is like that's a valuable
significant,
truck.
Yeah.
30,000 miles. That's
866-594-4150. Let's see if we can get this one in quick. Mike in Nevada, you're on the Under the Hood show. What can we do for you?
Hi, thanks for taking my call. This is Mike. I have a 1981 Mercedes 380 SL with 163,000 miles on it, and I got a couple fluid questions for you.
Okay.
We got about 1 minute is all. So
okay, it's got a rebuilt Mercedes transmission that only has 10,000 miles on it, but 20 years on it.
Yep.
The fluid looks beautiful. Is there any reason to change it?
No, leave it.
Shifts fine and everything.
Don't touch it.
Okay.
Those things are really
And
strong
secondly-
transmissions.
Yeah, they are. It works great. And secondly, it calls for 2050
Yes.
weight oil in it.
Use it.
Typically, I can only get that in the diesel type. Does that have any additives that I need to worry about or add?
A lot of people are using the diesel oils in that, which just are a stronger oil. But get on the Mercedes forums, see what those guys are using, because there are some other alternatives available to that out there. And if it's hard to find, you may have to buy it off of Amazon, because it's a place where you can get a lot of those oil. But there's a website called bobstheoilguy.com. Type that into Google. I don't know if that's the right address, but that they will give you tons of info on that engine. But you definitely want to stick with that 2050.
And you want to try and find good info, not just a guy that put that in.
Right.
Because I found that when I was looking for oil for the Volkswagen, that you had to find the special oil, and they were like, this works just as good. And who knows?
Well, if you change it every 10,000 miles, you might as well just use
not that
bubble gum in
Volkswagen,
it.
the other one.
Oh, the other one.
That'll do it for hour 1 until hour 2, which is about 5 minutes away. Give us a call, 866-594-4150. The Under the Hood Show is brought to you by Sturdivants.
You're listening to the Nordstrom's Under the Hood Show with the Motor Medics, Shannon Nordstrom and Russ the Super Tech Evans. Shannon is an ASE engine and parts specialist, and Russ is an ASE Master Certified Technician with extensive factory drivability training. Join the Motor Medics for fun and free automotive advice with real-world solutions to everyday automotive problems. The Under the Hood Show is heard weekly on this and other great radio stations across the U.S. Find out how you can participate in the show by visiting underthehoodshow.com.
With Russ Evans, this is Shannon Nordstrom, thanking you for tuning in to the Nordstrom's Under the Hood Show. Have a great day, and remember, PTLA.
The opinions heard on this program, based on the many years of experience of Russ and Shannon, are offered for entertainment value only and as a guide to your repair needs. No claim to repair or cause is given or implied. Always consult with your own certified technician and follow all safety procedures before attempting any repair. To be a part of the show, call 866-594-4150. Under the Hood is produced by Prairie House Productions. All content is the property of Nordstrom's Automotive Incorporated and may not be used without our permission. Copyright Nordstrom's Automotive, Inc. Now, let's go under the hood with the Nordstrom's Motor Medics.
Welcome to the Under the Hood Show. We are glad to have you with us. Russ Evans is here to answer your automotive questions.
What's up, people? Hello. Welcome.
Throwing a wrench in there, trying to throw us off, Shannon. Shannon Nordstrom is here to do the same.
Welcome, hoodies. Thanks for tuning in so we can help you tune up.
He did.
I was nervous for a second there.
I thought you might.
I was off base
throw
there.
You off, yeah. I'm Chris Carter here to answer your calls at 866-594-4150. 650. Got a lot of calls coming in from all across the country, so let's get right to them. Let's go to Luke. You're on the Under the Hood show. Luke, what can we do for you?
Hey guys, I got a 2011 Dodge Durango, 3.6 liter all-wheel drive. I've got a vibration that I just can't figure out.
Well, how? Tell us about your vibration.
Where?
What's shaking?
The whole car is shaking.
Okay.
I've had new tires put on, of course, balance, alignment. So that's all taken care of. I put all brand new brakes and rotors on all four corners. Drive shaft feels good. The U-joints in the drive shaft feel good. What are the odds that a CV shaft would? Basically, it starts at about 15 mile an hour. You can feel it a little bit in the wheel, but you can feel it on your foot in the floorboards. I mean, the whole vehicle is shaking around a little bit. I'm just kind of scratching my head trying to figure out which way I need to go, if I need to pull all CV shafts out of or not.
What if you're going 20 miles an hour and your foot is not on the gas? Does the steering wheel move back and forth?
Yep.
Okay. You need to get this thing off.
Acceleration, deacceleration.
All the time. Okay. You need to get it off the ground and put it in four-wheel drive and let it idle and watch the tread on the tires and see if it goes around in a circle smoothly or if it hops up and down. Like there's one part of the tire that's taller than the rest of the tire, because you can balance a square tire. It could be square and it'll balance and be 100% smooth, but when you put it on the ground, it's going to hop up and down all over the place because it's an egg or a square tire. It's just not going to roll smoothly. And this happens a lot. I have several times a year, a car will come in that's been in a tire store, a professional tire store, had tires put on it, brand new. They say, it shakes. I took it back twice. They balanced it. They aligned it. I said, well, alignment does nothing to do for shake. But a tire that's got a broken belt or is made and it's out of round right from the factory, which does happen. I get about 3 or 4 out of every 100 tires we do, brand new, that are not round, and they hop up and down and cause a vibration.
The one thing I want to go back and ask again, Russ, you've talked about that a lot, and you guys have showed me that.
Mm-hmm.
Same vibration with the old tires as the new tires?
Yes. Yeah, it's exactly the same.
If the wheel is bent,
speed doesn't make a lot of difference.
if the wheel is bent, it will cause the tire to be bent out of round. So double check that. Make sure it's rolling.
So you're most likely still focusing in on the wheels and tires.
I want to see it, because if it's at low speed and it moves the wheel, it's got to be a wheel. Rotate the front to the rear too and see if it changes at all. If it changes a little, you might have 3 bent wheels, 2 bent wheels. I mean, there might be one's bent on the front and the rear, but watch these very closely, because if you got a bent wheel, it'll do this. It'll cause it to be out around. Axle shafts that are bad, they typically wear out the tripod joint, and they only shake under acceleration. When you put a load on them, it gives you a vibration. But if you can ever just roll a car down the road at 20 miles an hour with your foot off the accelerator in neutral and the wheel walks back and forth, that is almost always a bent wheel or a tire that is out around, that is not staying on the road 100% symmetrical at all times. And they can be hard to catch. It could be
That's what I was going to say. It could get missed easy.
Yeah, it could be a 1/4 inch out of round, and they'll put it on the balancer and say, oh, the balance is just fine, because there's a hood that covers the tire when it's being balanced, and if you don't open it and look at it before the tire stops spinning, you won't see it. And you might not see it while it's at full speed. You wait until it slows down, and then you go, oh, look, it's moving up and down. I'll take a piece of chalk. Sometimes I'll take a piece of chalk and I'll tape it to the side of a bucket, and I'll put the bucket up against the tire tread, and then I'll spin the tire.
Sure.
And I'll watch it, and it'll go white mark, white mark, white mark as it's going around, or yellow chalk. And I've had to tell the tire place, we've got like 4 that we buy them from, but one particular, if I call them and say, your tire's out of round, they say, we'll send you another one out right away. The first couple times they're like, nah, I can't believe that. They never go bad. It's like, they never go bad, or the people don't send them back, or what, there's something. But they know that if we're going to tell them, you build that trust with your vendors, that you tell them if this is bad, they just take your word for it and they replace it. But you gotta know what to look for and
But
why.
but with the same vibration happening on two different sets of tires,
That would more than likely be a wheel.
Then we're looking back at a wheel more.
So
than
you're going to
likely.
hold that piece of chalk out next to it on the balancer or even on the car at one steady spot, like the frame, and turn it and see if you've got a wheel that's out of round.
Go ahead.
No, I was just gonna say, how do you will you see that bend then once you
piece
figure
of
out
chalk,
which
you'll see it.
I mean, once you figure out which tire is doing it, you'll be able to see that wheel
And
doing
it's not necessarily a side to side bend. It could be an up and down bend or side to side or both. You'll want to find out what it is. There's a fine art to getting these things to run.
As far as a Durango goes, drive shafts were problematic, but it was more front drive shafts than anything. And that would be if it was a 4-wheel drive. And once again, that typically shows up when you start putting stress on the drivetrain.
Not in the steering wheel, though. The only thing that'll move a steering wheel is a wheel that is out around, pushing it, a tire or wheel, that assembly, moving it back and forth.
If he puts it on the rack off the ground and it still vibrates while he's on the rack, then that points away from the wheel.
The wheel's not going to move back and forth left to right when it's off
Right.
the ground because there's nothing to push the steering gear back and forth when it's up in the air. The rack would actually have to physically move it, and it just can't do it.
Does that help you out there, Luke?
Yes, it does. It gives me the next thing to look at anyway. So I can go down to the wheel tire machine tonight after I get off work and go play around with it anyway.
If it was rolling on the hoist, like with what Chris just said, just sitting there, and the wheels were turning, you could see the steering wheel moving back and forth, that would be an axle shaft that was so bad that it was pushing out on one side or the other. But I've never seen that. I've seen them noisy and loose, but I've never seen one push the wheels back and forth in the air. But if you did see that, that's where it would be coming from.
Luke, thanks very much for the call. We're going to take a break. When we come back, we want to hear from you. 866-594-4150. You're listening to the Under the Hood Show.
Get your planner out right now and schedule your next radio appointment with the Motor Medics.
866-594-4150. Let's go to New Hampshire now and talk to Ethan. You're on the Under the Hood Show. Ethan, what can we do for you?
Got a couple of questions on my 05 Silverado 1500.
Okay.
Had a wheel seal on the rear axle go out the other day. I'm at 212,000 miles. I should just do bearings, seals, and everything both sides because I have to open the diff anyway.
So you're wondering if that's, you say you already did do that, or you're kind of trying to figure out what should I do?
We got to do that this weekend. I'm trying to figure out if it's not worth the money and the time to do the bearings, or if it should just all get done because I'm going to be in there anyway.
Well, what you need to do is take it apart, pull both the axles out of it, take the differential apart, pull the axles out, inspect the axle itself. First, before you take it apart, see if you can wiggle the axle up and down. If it's really loose, the bearing's got to be replaced, and more than likely the axle's got a groove worn in it as well. But if you don't feel them moving up and down, pull the axle out, make sure there's no groove cut into it from the old seal, because that rubber will cut through steel eventually. Just heat and friction and wear. But if there is no groove and there's no movement up and down, you're fine. Just put brand new seals in it, bolt it back together. But if you find a groove, or if that axle shaft is worn at all, or you got to replace the shaft and the bearing and the seal. Now, Dorman makes a pre-pressed axle assembly that for vehicles that have pressed-in bearings that come together. You get the new axle and the bearing assembly, and they're affordable that way, and you don't have to take it into a machine shop to press these things together.
This one would not be that way, though, right?
Right. But on this one, if you pull that axle out and you look at it and you see that the thing's got a groove, you need to toss that thing in the core pile, metal pile, and then you need to take the clip out, pop the bearing out, put a new bearing in it, new axle, new seal, put it back together. And, Dorman also has the standard axle shafts. That's what they started out with, that aren't pre-pressed, and they sell the bearings, so you can get the whole kit for it. I think you can get an axle, a bearing, and a seal all together as one. But any way you do it, you don't want to put an old axle shaft that's worn in with a new seal, because you're going to be doing this again. It's either going to leak immediately or very quickly after.
And what you want to watch for when you're taking it apart is something that is worn so badly that that's what caused the seal to go out.
Mm-hmm.
You know, so that a bearing had gotten bad enough that it took the seal out. And so that's kind of what as you're dismantling and inspecting, that's what you're looking for. Russ, do they still make for a newer vehicle like this? Is a speedy sleeve still a thing? I remember doing that on cars.
We don't do that. As affordable as axles have become now, we don't even do that. The sleeve was a piece of metal that would slip over the axle. You pound it on with a tool, and it would fix that area that was worn. And they just don't do them anymore, typically, unless the axle's super expensive and not available, because you can get maybe an axle shaft is, let's say, $90. If you buy a speedy sleeve for $58 that comes with a new seal, a lot of people would damage them putting them on.
Yeah, I know. I remember that being a thing, though. But on front crankshaft pulley or snouts, it was probably used quite often.
They used to sell one for the front differentials on the 88 through 98 GMC and Chevy pickups that had that front differential that would always leak on the driver's side flange that popped in there. Then they stopped making it. I was like, why would you do that? It fixed so many of them, and then you stopped, and now everybody's driving around with these leaky differentials. So, yeah, it's a thing.
Ethan, thanks very much for the call. If you have another question, why don't you disconnect and call us back? We have a really bad connection with you. I hope you're still able to hear the answer to that, and then call us back if you have another question. 866-594-4150. Let's go to Idaho and talk to Dan. You're on the Under the Hood show. Dan, what can we do for you?
Hi, guys.
Hey.
I bought I love the show, by the way.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I bought a 2024 RAV4 with a 2.5 gas in it. Bought it in Oregon on the 28th of December last year. We were down visiting family, and one of the reasons we went was to look for a car. But I drove it home. It had about 850 miles on it when I got it home. And I took it in and had the oil changed. And then I heard one of you guys, I think maybe it was Russ, talking about don't change the oil until it's got 10,000 miles on it. And I'm wondering if I have ruined it.
Well, it depends on the manufacturer's recommendation, a lot of these too. Russ, you can
Yes,
what did they recommend?
Let's jump in right away quickly and say that is a specific example that we were talking about. That's not a general rule that you wanted.
It's a fairly general specific answer.
Most brand new cars now,
okay,
they tell you when they want the first oil change done. So let's say you buy a brand new car and it says you wait until the light comes on for the first oil change. People are going, but it's not on yet, and I did change it myself, but then the light never came on till I got to 10,000 miles. But the next oil change, it came on at 5,000 miles. It's because the computer is programmed.
But I want to just make sure we're being clear here. That
it's because they put a brake in on.
We're not saying
everyone.
And maybe I'm wrong. We're not saying when you buy a car, wait 10,000 to 10,000 miles. We're
saying what the manufacturer asks you to do.
They might say 7,000 or 5,000 or.
But a lot of them now, the first oil
probably
change
not 800
is specifically more miles on them. But now when you buy a remanufactured
it might
engine,
be a different oil package in it.
The remanufacturers, they want you to use a non-synthetic oil, and they want you to change it at 500 miles and then continue to use non-synthetic till you get to 5,000.
Right.
But with something like this, I wouldn't worry that you've ruined it by any way, for sure. And especially a Toyota, they're really tough. Even if you change the oil the day you bought it, it'd probably still be fine. They break in well and they run really well.
Have you looked into your vehicle into the manual at all or any of that, Dan?
I really haven't.
Okay.
Take a look at that. I wouldn't worry too much about it, but what I would do is if you decided that you put in, if the manufacturer recommends just a synthetic blend, and you changed it at this, let's say at 500 miles or 300 for the first time, and you used a 100% fully synthetic, I would not do that. I would go back to what the factory recommended for like the first 5,000 to 10,000 miles, and then go with a fully synthetic oil just to make sure it breaks in. We have had a couple of these lately that have burned oil early, and we don't know why, but we do have a customer of ours that has a Camry with 60,000 miles on it that is using 3 quarts of oil a week now, and that car is going to go away. They're getting a different one. Their time.
If I bought a new car, if I'm Dan, I bought a new RAV4. I had the oil changed at 3,000 or 5,000 miles, and then find out it should have been 10. Do I go back?
No, if they're 3 or 5 is fine.
Okay,
but if you change it to 500, no.
Here's what I do like: the fact that he drove this thing from Oregon.
Yeah.
And he was it was heated up, probably not a ton of stops. He didn't take like 5 days to come back or anything, right?
How many miles was in that first trip?
Oh, it was, the car was up in Washington and the dealership was in Oregon. So they got it down from Washington. There was a couple hundred miles there. And by the time I got it home, it had 850 miles.
You're probably broke in about 80 to 90% of the way already in that type of driving through that area. I mean, I've driven through there before. You're up and down. The mileage, the hills, and the mountains. Yeah, I bet you're completely broke in. I wouldn't worry about it much at all.
Okay. Well, good. I'm kind of the reason I bought the car is because maybe I told you I listened to the show for over a year and there was no one who called in about a RAV4 of any vintage.
Very tough.
So that must.
This morning on the when I was watching the national news, they always have the reports from the National Highway Traffic Safety Administration, and they were doing small SUVs testing the emergency braking system. And if you get a chance to see that article, I'm sure you can find it on the internet. They had a motorcycle, so like a simulated crotch rocket, and then they also had a semi sitting there, and they had these vehicles come up to them at higher rates of speed than they had tested them previously. The RAV4 was one of them that passed. There are a number of them that took out the motorcycle, ran into the semi. Their emergency braking systems did not work like it was supposed to. And it was very disheartening to watch these vehicles that are selling themselves as having this
safety forward
crash ratings. The crash ratings are good, but the stopping ratings are not so
the one brand of Subaru, the one model of Subaru they had, nailed it. The Toyota
whoa. Nailed it
as in the good test.
Okay. Passed the test.
That's a good point out. They passed the test. But the RAV4 was in the acceptable category, I think, where it slowed down and even steered to the side. I think the Chevy Equinox just blasted into both of them. And then they had another one that just, a Mazda of some sort, just plowed right into the back end. It was like, oh, that's not good.
I would like to I'm going to jump in and tell our listeners, ignore everything you just said.
Because
you said, I think it was a Subaru, and then it was
just go watch it yourself.
Go watch the test.
No, I know. That's right.
But I do know that a Subaru for sure got the highest mark.
Subaru,
was it
one model.
Equinox or something.
I know. I do know the Equinox blasted the motorcycle.
Okay. There you go. Does that help you out there, Dan?
Yeah, I've got one more short question, if possible.
Go for it.
Okay, I've been a Toyota holic for years. I've got a 95 Toyota Tacoma that's got 313,000 miles running strong, but it's got a small oil leak, and I went to look in the parts stores for a can of Justice Brothers oil stop leak. I went to O'Reilly's in Napa, but where in the Blackfoot area can I buy that, or is it just a matter of checking every place I go?
You're going to need to check with professional shops because although there are several retail places around the country that have them, there's not nearly as many as professional service centers like ours. It's geared towards a professional service center who can recommend a great product to the customer that they sell at their own shop.
Reach out to Justice Brothers and find out who their distributors are in that area of the country.
Yep.
Yeah, it's kind of that question is.
Go to their website.
It's hard for us to answer.
Yep. You can email them right at thejusticebrothers.com and say, I'm looking for distributors in my
Because in our area, we have Gillen Enterprises, and Paul and his team do an amazing job, and they've got that product all over the place in our part of the world. But there are other veins of the world that may not be as distributed, and that's why you have to ask Justice Brothers. Maybe you could be a distributor for them.
Dan, thanks very much for the call. Good luck. 866-594-4150. We're going to take a break. When we come back, we want to hear from you.
Prepare to learn something. You're going under the hood.
866-594-4150. Don't forget you can watch the show on our YouTube channel, and if you subscribe to the YouTube channel and sign up for the Hoodie Fan Club at underthehoodshow.com, you could win a hoodie.
Like Jesse Kern, congratulations from all of us here at Under the Hood.
Thanks to our friends at UTI.
Universal Technical Institute. You have got yourself a hoodie.
Congratulations.
They're nice hoodies, too.
They are. 866-594-4150. We're going to go back to New Hampshire quick. Ethan's got a better signal this time, we hope. Ethan, what was your second question?
So I called a month or so ago about my parking brake light being just illuminated a little bit all the time. And I stretched, went to the pedal and tried to deal with that. Recently noticed when I went to get into my vehicle after it was dark out that light is on all the time. So what direction would you point me in there?
First step, disconnect the brake wire at the parking brake. Unplug it. If the light's still on, go under the hood. Find the brake proportioning valve, if it has one. Unplug that. You'll follow the two metal lines down from the master cylinder, and then you'll see a little block that has one little wire plugged into it with a white or black cap on it. Disconnect that. If the light's still on, then if the vehicle has an ABS pump, if you disconnect the ABS pump wires, just unplug them there. There's 3 connectors, I think, on that, 2 or 3. Disconnect it. If the light goes off, that ABS pump is telling the light to come on. Now plug everything else back in and leave that unplugged and see if the light's off. If it is, that ABS pump is going to need to be replaced. And now if everything's disconnected, the ABS, the proportioning valve, and that wire inside, you got a problem with your instrument cluster. I've really never seen a short in a wire on one of those unless it's been messed with. Somebody's cut some stuff up and worked on wiring. The instrument clusters can go bad, and that can happen. But that ABS pump has the ability to turn the red brake light on for a hydraulic warning. And if it has a pressure sensor problem inside, it will do that. Or if the ECU goes bad inside of that ABS pump, which is located under your driver's feet, right on the frame, right underneath your feet.
Right on the frame
Yep.
rail.
But I've seen plenty of those go bad and do that where they turn the light on. So if you unplug that, you may go there first. Just go right to the ABS pump, unplug it, see if the light goes off. If it does, it's the ABS pump. It's pretty normal. The motors would stick on and run the battery dead on those, and it would have a relay problem that would turn the light on. They just had a few issues. Not every one. I'd feel safe and secure buying a good certified used one from Car Dash Part, but they can fail. And this is one of their common issues that happens that keeps the red brake warning light on.
Ethan, what are you seeing? This is going to seem like an obvious question, but I'm going somewhere, and I'll probably talk myself right into a corner I don't want to be in. But why are you replacing what are you seeing that makes you realize that you got to do axle seals in the back?
Took all my wheels off this past weekend just to clean all the mud from mud season out of them because I felt one had gotten a little out of balance. And noticed smell of gear oil first, and then pulled the drum off, and it's full of gear oil.
Okay, well, I was just trying. And yours is still drum brakes in that 05 because it could be either way.
Yep, still drum.
Russ, is there anything going on back there if he would have gotten enough rear axle grease into his brake setup that could have caused that hydraulic pressure light to come on? Is there any
Nope.
any connection there?
Nope. If you cut one of the wires back there, you get a yellow, amber ABS light.
That's what I thought. Okay.
You have to have a pressure. The red brake light is a parking brake activated light and a hydraulic pressure warning.
Where if
light.
he was losing brake pressure from a wheel cylinder that went bad or something,
that could do it.
Then he could because he talked about the light flickering before it came on.
The ABS pump has a function that it can turn on the yellow light saying we have an ABS failure and a red warning light. If you get a red warning light because of ABS pressure, it'll always turn on the ABS light because ABS can't be activated when you've got pressure. But if you have a failure in the unit, it can give you a red light all by itself. So if you unplug it and the light goes off, then the unit is definitely toast.
Yeah, because I've had people misunderstand a
brake light.
Well, a brake wheel cylinder leak for a rear axle seal leak, and if they're not getting real intimate. But he said he smelled rear end grease. I quit that theory right now.
If you are a mechanic, you owe it to yourself to get some gloves on and stick your finger in every different type of fluid you can and learn what they smell like. Because I can go to the parking lot, jump in a car when a customer says, I have a leak. I think my car's leaking antifreeze. And I hop in and go, no, you got a brake fluid leak. Well, how do you know? Because I smell brake fluid and it's leaking on your exhaust. It's hot. That's brake fluid. Are you sure? Like, yeah, I'm positive. Well, the antifreeze isn't going down. That's because it's not antifreeze. It's brake fluid. And you look, oh, I see it's half empty. Or you can smell the rear end fluid is antifreeze, rear end fluid, gasoline, the three top super strong distinctive smells in a car. Brake fluid, you got to get used to that. That's something that's engine oil. You got to get used to. Now, if engine oil's hot and burning, you could tell that. But brake fluid's going to be a little different unless you're smelling it. But you can rear end.
Yep.
Above all, you're going to smell it. Either that's coming out of the transmission if it's a manual trans, or it's coming out of a rear end.
You can tell when a rear end stinks.
Ethan, thanks very much for the call.
You sure can.
I'm 12 years old.
Were you just waiting? How long were you waiting?
30 seconds.
Ethan, thanks very much for the call. Good luck. 866-594-4150. Sometimes I make a noise.
You made a
Not
noise
always.
yesterday.
Not
After
always.
pancake days?
Yeah.
You made multiple noises.
Yep.
I was like, you had biscuits, didn't you?
Let's talk to Paul. You're on the End of the Hood show. Paul, what can we do for you?
Hi, guys. I have a question about my 2002 GMC Sierra pickup. We left for Arizona last fall, and I followed my owner's manual that said to disconnect the black negative cable from the battery. We got back yesterday. I reconnected that, and I got plenty of power. I can tell, horn works, the radio works, but it seems like the ignition is, I'll call it disabled. It won't start. Then I pulled the red cable off as well, thinking, well, maybe I do need to charge the battery, but I don't know why, but I reconnected the battery, the red and the black, and it fired right up. It started right up, so I could back it out of the garage and get it out of the way, for my wife's good car to come in the garage. I parked it beside the driveway, shut it off, and now I'm back to the same situation. When I get in the vehicle, the security symbol symbol on the dash is flashing, and it's the chime, it's chiming at me. Ding, 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 ding. Put the key in the ignition, nothing. It's not clicking, it's not doing anything. So it's like something's been disconnected or shut down in that ignition system.
And all you did is went to Arizona and took the negative cable off before you left.
Correct. Yep.
Well, it's losing its security, and that could either be because you've got a failure in the sensor that's in the ignition column. It's part of the key. You've got a sensor, and the lock cylinder is that whole part there, or the body control module has failed. Usually it's not the sensor and the key that fails when you disconnect it. That fails on its own, and they rarely fail. But when you disconnect the battery and hook it back up, the body control module likely could have failed, and it will program sometimes when you disconnect the battery, hook it back up, mess with the key, and all of a sudden, hey, it started, I backed out of the garage, but then the next time it won't work. We just put a body control module. I did this a couple days ago in a Monte Carlo in an 03 for this same problem. You could mess with it, and every few times it would start and be just fine, and then you'd let it sit 10 minutes, and then it wouldn't start again. And you go through a relearn with the key, and you'd get it to start, and then it would lose it again. That threw the body control module in, and it's fixed.
Do you understand how to do the relearn? Have you ever done that?
Are you asking me?
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. Okay, that's a good answer. Try to start it. Put the key in. Turn it to the crank position. Nothing's going to happen. Let go of the key. Walk away. Come back in about 11 to 12 minutes. Look at the dash. If the security light is not flashing anymore, you've waited long enough. If it's still flashing, wait another 2 or 3 minutes. Once that light stops flashing, shut the key off for 15 seconds, try to crank it again, then let go of the key and just let it sit there until that light goes off again, which is going to be another 11 to 15 minutes. Shut it off a third time for 15 seconds or so. Then try to crank it again. It's probably going to start on the third time. It may be the fourth. But if it starts, then it's programmed. If it loses that programming again, it either needs a lock cylinder or a body control module or both. But I'm guessing, because it happened after a battery was disconnected, it's the body control module. It probably just had a little static discharge, and it was just a freak accident.
Next time you go to Arizona, buy yourself a digital battery tender.
Battery maintainer. Yep.
And battery tender is a brand name, but battery maintainer, they don't cost a lot of money. You can buy them for $29 to $99. You pick your poison.
$12 to $99.
They've gotten that cheap. Yeah. I don't buy the $12 one. I usually try to buy like the $39
Yeah, I went
one.
14.
Oh, you went 14.
Yeah, I stepped up.
And just put it on there and leave it. It's gonna keep that battery just happy, and you don't have to disconnect anything.
And I feel bad for Paul because this was the winter that his truck went bad, but it was the winter. It was not a bad winter either.
It's gonna program.
You know what I mean?
I think it's gonna program. I got optimism. It's gonna program.
A couple of years ago, it would have been worth the truck shutting down to not be here for winter. But last winter was fine.
So it looks like by the look on Russ's face, if we were betting, Russ would bet that it probably won't program, and I would bet that it would.
It'll program, but then it's going to lose it again.
Okay.
Oh, that would be the end of the bet. We got to make sure it sticks. Yeah.
I don't think it's going to stick.
Okay.
But I'm
Paul,
hopeful.
let us know.
I'm an optimist.
Just send us a message and let us know if it works or not.
But if it starts,
because
you can get it into a shop. Even if it loses program it again and drive it.
Good point.
Don't tow it.
We're going to take a break. When we come back, we want to hear from you. 866-594-4150. You're listening to the Under the Hood Show.
Get your planner out right now and schedule your next radio appointment with the Motor Medics.
866-594-4150. That's the number to reach us here at the Under the Hood Show. We do have a couple open lines that dropped off. So if you would like to call us, we could take your calls right now. 866-594-4150. Let's go to Georgia and talk to Jesse. You're on the Under the Hood Show. Jesse, what can we do for you?
Hey, guys. I've got a 2017 F-150, the V8 5.0. Bought it back in October, and ever since I had it, it has an intermittent long crank. So it will start up every single morning. If it sits for an hour, it'll start up. If it sits, overnight, the next morning, it's fine. But in about a 2 to 4 hour range, it will inevitably give me a long crank, sometimes 5, 6, 7 seconds. It's a push to start. And a couple weeks ago, I got excited because you had a caller calling with a similar issue on a Ford that was a flex fuel. And you talked about the alcohol content sensor. So I looked at that, and I run the 87 fuel in it, and it is reading about 9.8%.
That's right.
So it's not that. So I'm not sure where to go from there. I wanted to check the fuel pressure,
yes,
but there's no Schrader valve on the
high pressure side.
Injector line to do that. So what do you guys suggest?
You've got a EcoBoost in there, don't you?
No, 5.0.
It is 5.0?
Yep.
Okay. Yeah.
Yes.
You're going to have to find out what the fuel pressure is, and you may be able to find that out on the scanner because it should have a pressure reading on the scanner of what that is. I'm guessing
when
it's
probably
probably
the scanner, do you mean
a scanner, a plug-in
that
scanner
I have? Like one that a Bluetooth?
That one might work.
Okay.
That you have. It probably has that data PID in there, but you got to find out what that fuel pressure is. My guess is you're losing fuel pressure after it sits, and it's either a pump that's failing or you've got an injector that's bleeding down, causing it to not.
And it's holding for an hour, but 3-4 hours it's not.
Yeah, the longer you go, the worse it's going to get.
But then overnight it works.
No, doesn't mean it'll always do it. But the other thing you got to check too is always look at the data, because if it's failing in its range, it's not going to give you a code. But if you've got a temp sensor, if it sits overnight and you see that the engine temp is at, 72 degrees and the outside temperature is 45, that's a problem. You've got a bad temp sensor and it's not giving it enough fuel to fire up But if it's completely warm, yeah, that'd be enough to fire up. So you've got to look at that data and know what it should be. Outside temperature and intake air and engine coolant temps should all be within a couple degrees of each other after an 8-hour sit. And if they're not, one of those is bad, and that's a huge input to that computer of how much fuel to give it to start. There's no choke available, like an old choke. It's just not going to start. It's going to take forever to crank.
Right. Yeah, and my main issue is just the fact that it starts up in the morning. Makes a lot of sense to me if it was, after a few hours and then in the morning. I'm like, obviously I am losing pressure and I'm not going to get a good crank, but it's my main thing is that it cranks in the morning, so that's what has me confused. But yeah, I don't have an actual scanner. It's one of the just OBD2 error code. I can clear codes and stuff like that, so I can see the trims. And unfortunately, with all the data that it'll show me, it does not have fuel pressure. I've looked through it 100 times and just can't seem to find a fuel pressure reading it with that scanner. So
does it have coolant temp and intake air temp on it? IAT, CTS?
Yes, it does.
Then look at those readings after it sits overnight when it's cold and see what they are. Make sure they're exactly what the outside temperature is within like 1 or 2 degrees after an 8-hour sit. And then also look at them once it's run. Like if you run it and then you park it and shut it off and you come back and it's a hard, long crank, shut it off immediately, turn the key on, and then plug into it and see what those readings are and see if the engine temperature is what it should be. Because if you've been driving it for an hour and it's up to, let's say, 195 degrees, and then you go to crank it shortly after and it doesn't start right away, turn it off and read it. And if it says that it's 55 degrees, that's wrong. Or the intake air is 140 and the outside temp is 65. You can see there'll be a difference because the intake will start to warm up a little bit as the engine temperatures under the hood warm up. But it won't be that far off.
Jesse, thanks very much for the call. Good luck. 866-594-4150. Let's go to Idaho and talk to Mike. You're on the End of the Hood Show. Mike, what can we do for you?
Well, thank you for taking my call. I have a 96 Toyota Tacoma, and it's getting up into the 60s and 70s now, but the truck will always start right up. Well, once it warms up, it doesn't want to start anymore. And an interesting thing about this truck, I changed the engine in it about 30,000 miles ago, and it still does it. So it's something else outside of the engine.
Well, I'd take a close look at the fuel pressure regulator on this thing, because being that old with the fuel pressure regulator on that, if it's leaking at all, it'll have extra fuel when it's cold to start, and that's like a little extra choke or spraying some starting fluid in it. It'll usually fire up even quicker when it's cold, but once it's warm, it's got too much fuel and it's rich. If it's got a real long crank, one thing you might try is when you know it's going to do it, if there's a pattern and you know that it's going to start hard every time once it's warmed up, just hold the pedal to the floor, the gas pedal to the floor, turn the key on and crank it while you're still holding it to the floor. And if it fires up really quickly, a lot quicker than it did before, and then runs, when it starts to rev up, take your foot off the gas. That means you're getting too much fuel with either an injector leaking or a fuel pressure regulator that's leaking into the vacuum line and causing it to load up with fuel.
The motor you put in there, why?
I just wanted to be proactive. It had 400,000 miles on it.
Okay, so the motor you put in there has 60 or 70,000 miles on it. The truck itself has 400,000 miles on it.
Yeah, the truck has about 430,000 miles on it. When I changed the engine, I put a rebuilt engine in it, and I've run it about 30,000 miles since.
This is a little Tacoma, right? Not the new
Tacoma. Yep. Yeah, and I'm just trying to clarify some things I wrote down in my notes here. So, getting up into the 60s or 70s, you said.
That was the temperature.
Okay. All right, that makes more sense. Okay. I didn't know if you were talking about you, the truck,
right?
That's true. For what was getting into the 60s or the 70s?
Good question.
I'm in the 70s too. But it used to be when you had to wait until it got into the 90s before it really got problems. But now I've noticed it. We're still in the 60s here, and once it gets warmed up, it don't want to start.
And if you put a remanufactured motor in there, you transferred over the fuel rail, the fuel pressure regulator, and everything off the old engine. So those problems would have moved right with it if that's the area or the arena we got to look at.
Yes, I believe so.
Well, check that out, and it sounds like a truck you're going to own for a long time.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm kind of imagining this truck with 400,000 miles on it still being super clean and nice, and that's why you'd love it, right?
I really like it.
Yeah,
My wife wants me to get rid of it, but I like it.
That's fun.
Yeah, you got to fix it then. If she wants to get rid of it and you like it, it's got to be flawless, doesn't it? You got to make it.
Got to make it nice.
Perfectly. Mike, thanks very much for the call. Good luck. 866-594-4150. Well, that Tacoma doesn't look anything like a 2024 Tacoma.
No, the 2024 Tacoma is pretty chiseled.
Twice as big as this
one. It's a mini truck.
Yeah, it's
a mini truck.
Let's go to Wyoming and talk to Jess. You're on the Under the Hood show. Jess, what can we do for you?
Hey, great show. Hey, I've got a 2008 Jeep Liberty, a 3.7 with 124,000 on it. We took it to the garage here recently. They had to replace the front cover because it was leaking. And when they went ahead and changed oil. And when they did, they went to a full synthetic. Am I stuck with a full synthetic now?
No, you can go back to what you had, but if it has always run on a synthetic blend, I'd stick with that, because with that many miles, you run the risk of it starting to burn oil or leaking some oil. So I definitely wouldn't switch to a full synthetic. You go to a high mileage engine oil that's got some additives to control oil leakage and oil burning, but I definitely wouldn't switch to a full synthetic after that many miles on a synthetic blend.
Okay, because we're getting ready to go on a long trip. Do I need to go ahead and change it before I do that? It's only got 300 miles on this oil.
No, I mean, you probably be just fine, but I don't like it. I've seen too many engines that have gone, people have switched to full synthetic, and then they've come in and said, hey, I got an oil leak now, and what have you done to it lately? Well, I just started using full synthetic last oil change, and now I'm seeing some oil, because it's smaller, more uniform molecules, and they will find their ways out of passages that the other oil couldn't, and then it will wash out grease and dirt from those areas, and it'll start to leak. So
the front cover's got new seals on it, at least.
The front cover's got new seals, but those engines don't typically leak a lot to begin with. So I'm not real.
I would not be
about it.
rushing to dump the oil out before your vacation, but maybe take your trip, and when you get back, plan on doing a high mileage oil with a synthetic blend.
Yep.
Jess, thanks very much for the call. Good luck. All right, that's going to do it for hour 2 of the Under the Hood show. We'll do a little bit of an after show, catch up with each other, find out what's going on. You can always watch the show on our YouTube channel. And if you would, subscribe there and click the notifications bell. We'd love it. And thanks for listening on the radio to the Under the Hood show.
So.
I'm obsessed with the temperature in my car. When we were talking to the call before the last one, since a couple of years ago, and even I can't remember, whenever I had my temp problems, I was watching the engine temp on my dashboard a lot. And since I started doing that, I am just fascinated by the temperature of my car. It's been great. I have no problems, but I especially when I get in it and I see that the engine temp is 54, I like to start it and watch the temp. What
would you do if it wasn't right? Would you know?
Yes, because for a while there, I was paying very, very, very close attention to the temperature of my car on a second by second basis by need. So I know about where it should be and what it's at. I still like, even if I'm checking mileage or something or resetting the gauge for the MPG, I go back. My comfort zone is now with the temperature up there, so I can see what the temperature is, even though it's been a year or more since I ever had any issues with it.
second only to new wax products for your car.
Yeah,
and
that was
tires.
the other thing. The Tacoma. We were talking about the Tacoma. My wife and I saw a new Tacoma
Sure.
and it was a TRD, and they were talking about the cladding on the
Bigger than an old F-150.
and how much stuff it's got a lot of bric-a-brac on the, you know what I mean? And I said, oh, look at that. We should get that.
Mhm.
They last. And she said, well, if we sold the Pontiac and you got one of those, what would you do? What would you go out and do in the garage? You wouldn't have to take care of it like you do the Pontiac. And I thought to myself, oh boy, if I had a brand new vehicle, the cleaning and detailing I could do on a brand new vehicle. You're right about like our car that's 10 years old. That one I'm not that interested in. I'm not interested in making the Prius look better. But if it were a new vehicle,
You
that
get
thing
like
would be spotless.
when you go
Take
into
your shoes off before you get in.
when you need some cleaning products and you walk into AutoZone and you go down their cleaning aisle and there's like hundreds of
When I
different
need
things.
new cleaning products,
Yeah,
I don't ever need new cleaning products.
but
I
you
just
want them.
get
You're
'em.
obsessed with them. So
If I'm bored, I'll go down to cleaning aisle and go, I'll try
it's like
this.
when you go into AutoZone
Lug nut
and
polish.
I'm walking down that aisle, I'm like going, oh, because there's so much stuff. It's like, okay, there's 5 different kinds of tire dressing. Oh, I could I'll just take one of each. And then it's like the wax. Oh, well, there's wax. Oh, there's wax just for black cars.
Yes.
There's wax just for white cars.
I have it.
Wax for every color in between cars. Oh, I'm like,
I kind of short circuit in that aisle.
yeah.
Don't think I haven't thought.
Soap that has wax in it.
Our Prius is the magnetic gray or blue. I can't remember which it is. It's bluish gray, dark.
Yeah.
I've thought, I should try the black wax on it and see what happens. Because I have the
You
black.
ever wax the Prius?
Yes. The front.
Did the mileage go up?
The front is all coated, so it doesn't. The front is plastic.
Yeah.
I mean, it's got the stuff on it. I think I've waxed it twice.
Sure.
Not super interested in waxing it because it's still it. When I wash it, it looks brand new.
Sure.
You know what I mean?
So you're good.
Yeah.
So, what would make you get rid of a car, Chris? I mean, like if you got one I should get? No, when you're driving your car, and so you've already put an engine in it in one, and what was your decision on that? That putting an engine in it, the car is still worth way more than what it cost to put the engine in it. But what if that engine would have cost like $3,000 more than the car was worth to put it in? Would you still fix that car you have? And what's that based on? Because you really love that car or because of the value of the car?
I would say I did it because I and this was back then when we did it. I did it because I love the car. I told my wife we did it because of the value.
And it was you with what you spent on the engine, you could still sell the car for probably $5,000 or $6,000 more than what the engine cost to
Especially
put
at
in.
the time.
And it was like without an engine, it was worth basically nothing.
Yeah.
It was like less than $1,000. So
Yeah.
I ask this because we have this question every day, literally, and sometimes a half a dozen times a day. They'll call and say, "I have this car, and the engine's bad. How much does it cost to fix it?" And I say, let's say I tell them $6,000. They go, "Oh gosh, the car can't be worth more than a couple $1,000. I don't think I want to spend it." Have you gone and checked to see what it would cost you to go buy this car? Let's say you throw it away and or you're shopping for a new one right now. You go to buy it. No, I haven't. Do that and call me back. And they look and they see the car that they thought was worth, let's say $3,000. It's worth $11,000, like an Equinox,
And
like
that
a 16, 17 Equinox. They're like, oh, they're still selling for 11, and it's going to cost me $6,000 to put a brand new engine in it that's, got a 3 or 100,000 mile warranty.
That's come back around a little bit, but because a few years ago it was crazy.
Yeah.
Now it's getting a
But
little.
when we see spreads where the car is worth $3,000 more than whatever the repair is, doesn't it make more sense to repair the car, even if you don't like it, repair it and sell it and make money like you're invested in the stock market? It's like, if I could tell you, Chris, you hand me $10 and I'm going to, you've got a dollar bill. I'll say, you know what? You add $3 to this dollar bill and I'm going to give you 6 more on top of it. So now you have 10. Wouldn't you do that every time? You've got $3 in your hand, and all you have to do is add $3 to that and hand it to me. So I've got 6, and now I'm going to hand you 10 back. You've made 4, right?
I immediately think you're trying to trick me like
But that's 40%.
Harry Anderson. Yeah.
So most people get that. And I've had people that have gone to trade in, the guy went to trade in a truck, and they said, yeah, the motor's knocking. It's not, we don't want to trade it in. It's like, well, what if the motor wasn't knocking? Oh, we'd give you $14,000 for it towards this brand new truck you're buying. So they put an engine in it and they drove it down and traded it in. Well, that makes sense.
Mm-hmm.
Or they could sell it.
I think the better example would be the Equinox, because there's so many of them that did have bad motors that when people call a place like ours, we tell them it's going to be, depending on the condition, miles, whatever, it's going to be $500 with a bad engine. Well, that's $500 is all.
Mm-hmm.
And if you're able to get that value up and increase and put $3,000 back in your pocket, that's $3,000 you can put towards your next vehicle.
I just had somebody
you've got to be in a position to do that too.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Not everybody's in a position to do that. So
I just had somebody with a 17 Equinox that a dealership offered him $2,000 cash just to buy it. And I said, what's wrong with this picture? Somebody just offered, I said, is that a trade-in? No, they'll just give me cash for it. I said, it doesn't happen. If they're offering you cash, they're going to put a reman engine in it. They're going to put it on the lot and sell it. Because when the dealer gets a car, it goes to the auction if it's dead, or to a salvage yard if it's dead, period. They don't fix them and resell them unless it's a clean, low-mileage car. And this was a low-mileage car.
Something
This
really
was,
nice that rings the bell.
This was like 82,000 miles.
Yep.
No damage disclosure. It had burned oil, so it needed an engine.
And maybe the shop had slowed down a lot.
Yep.
And they were,
so, so it got an engine, and it like doubled the value of the car versus selling it. But what's got me lately is we've had a number of people where I've said, like, we've got one right now, and they said, now we're just going to scrap it. And I'm like, you're going to scrap it? And I think the value of it was like $600 to scrap it. They've got a car that needed $6,000 of repair, and the selling, what they're actually, not book value, but what they're selling for right now is $16,000. And I said, why wouldn't you fix that? And they said,
remember the Ridgeline call?
And they said, well, we just don't really like the car a lot. So, the Ridgeline?
Guy called, said he and his siblings had a relative that died, and they inherited this Ridgeline, and it was 7 years old. It probably wasn't worth much, so they were wondering if they should just scrap it or if they should, what they should do with it, because they thought it was worth nothing. And we looked it up, and this was at the peak of it all. And they were selling, that one was selling for $40,000.
Yeah.
And we just did a quick search on that. Remember that?
I forgot about that.
Yeah, that was the first one back in the day where I went, oh, this is a weird time to be alive.
That was a 3.5 Honda. Yeah.
So that has come down a little bit from 3 years ago.
Yeah.
But it hasn't really.
It's still because of there are more cars available, but the price of cars is still insane. Even with the rebate, like Shannon said, they're offering $8,000 cash back on a new Bronco. Buy one today. Great, but you're still buying a vehicle that's thousands of dollars.
It's still $50,000.
I was just looking at a truck the other day, and it said the price of the truck was $98,000 after a $7,000 rebate from GMC. I'm like, it's still.
But there are rebates now that weren't there when you looked a year ago.
Right. So it was over 100, but still, do you want to pay $90,000 for a truck plus all your tax? You got to pay your taxes on it.
I had a friend they're kind of looking at vehicles, and his wife said, well, remember back when we met, you had a Wagoneer. You loved that thing. We should go look at new Wagoneers. And you went, yeah, okay, let's go look. And the one, they're $100,000.
That did floor me that the new Wagoneer, when it came out, was so much money. I expected it to be like an $80,000 vehicle, but it is.
They've got a couple levels of that, but yeah, there's
it is a fancy truck. It's a nice vehicle.
They don't call it the Jeep anymore because they didn't want anybody to they didn't want anybody to feel bad.
I think it's interesting that when they designed the design cues that they kept, one of them that they kept was the chrome trim around the back window.
Huh.
I have not noticed that.
You'll never not notice it again.
Right.
When you follow them, they have a very distinct chrome trim around the back window that would be reminiscent of the chrome that used to surround the glass on the old Grand Wagoneer Limiteds.
That went up and down.
Yeah,
chrome.
yeah. And so if you look at that, you're going to say, I can't, because it's very distinct when you pull up behind one.
Jack Black loved his Wagoneer, and what was that movie? Stranger Things. What was the one he wrote with the everything he wrote in the book came to life? Just recently.
No idea.
I think it was Stranger Things.
That's the Netflix show.
No, this is a movie. Yeah, right. But it was a movie. I think it was Stranger Things, where he was a writer, and
You talking about Chris's body double?
Yeah. Huh. And but the Wagoneer got destroyed, and he's like, my Wagoneer. He loved his Wagoneer in that show.
People do. My brother still talks about it.
One just sold for $70,000 at Barrett Jackson in Palm Springs.
One of like the 80s or something.
It was an 80s one that had been restored.
Yeah.
My brother bought his for $450 and sold it for $850 about 7 years later. So
you know what I saw the other day?
Pretty happy with it.
In Sioux Falls, and the other day going on the road, I saw a 80s AMC Eagle 4-wheel drive.
They're a hard thing to get a hold of,
the brown, that bronze color, and it was beautiful. It looked like brand new, and somebody had like 30-inch tires on it. So I mean, it was
That's
fun. Modified a little bit.
That's unique.
They should put wood on the side of a Wagoneer. That should be a
option.
Yeah,
I would bet somebody with a vinyl company
paint
has wrapped.
We're starting to see you. I know you've seen like a High Sierra GMC that's got the 80s paint scheme on it.
Oh yeah, there's people
looks
wrapping them like crazy.
Yeah, it looks like old, but it's not. And there's quite a few of them that are that way. Some of the Broncos have been.
I'd like to wrap mine like a bowling alley. Put the marks on it and the dots. That'd be cool.
There is a wrap. Our guy at the shop, Jake, showed me a couple days ago on Facebook, and this guy wrapped his brand new like 24 motorhome, like $1 million, like a Prevost motorhome. He wrapped it to look like Christmas Vacation, like Cousin Eddie's motorhome, and it looks like crap. That's horrible.
Awesome.
And he's been thrown out of a couple campgrounds because they said, "Hey, it looks like garbage." He's like, "It's like $1 million, $2 million motorhome." They're like, "It looks horrible. It's an eyesore." But no, it's wrapped. It's a joke. But we don't care. You can't park it here. Can you imagine that? But it looks like
unintended consequences
from a distance. It looks like
big W on the side.
Yeah.
Bus.
All right.
Yeah, do the big Winnebago.
The
stripes
line
down the side.
Yeah. Uh-huh.
Oh,
and I've seen like the new Land Cruiser. They've done some, the Pathfinder. They have a trim level that is the old graphic on the side with the multicolored lines. And
they're trying to grab buyers from people that loved it when it was young. They're trying to grab those buyers when they get older.
I would love that. I had a Pathfinder for about 2 days. I did exactly what you said, Russ. I had a guy I worked with. I had my car. I'll just say my car. My Geo Metro. I was getting a new vehicle, and I took my Geo Metro in to see what they would give me on trade. The guy I worked with said, "I need that. I want good mileage. I'll trade you that for my Pathfinder." It was an 87 Pathfinder.
Oh, hard body Pathfinder too.
And and I said, "Hold on, So I went in, and I told him what I was going to do. I went in and brought my car in, got the trade value on the vehicle I wanted. Next day I went back with the Pathfinder, and it was way more. So I traded the guy straight up, and I went and got a brand new vehicle that same day. It was
How
great.
much did you gain in that deal? Do you remember?
2,500, I think. Around 2,000.
There you go. It's just like fixing your car or
which at the
scrapping it.
time was like 10,000.
Yeah,
especially
that was a
me.
big impact.
Yeah,
cool.
Yeah.
And plus you saved a little tax because you had a higher trade-in value.
Mm-hmm. I was thinking about that. I don't think I made enough money to pay any income tax. So taxes weren't really a noticeable thing for me at the time.
Well, that was a choice
I was
on that one.
Yeah, for sure.
What car did you get when you traded the Pathfinder in?
The Isuzu Amigo.
Yeah.
Saw a guy at the grocery store recently that had my exact thing. I was like, "Hey, that car is cool. I used to have one of those." And he said, "I used to have one of those."
Did you walk out in the parking lot and say, "Hey, amigo"?
No.
Was it a new one?
No,
not a new Amigo.
No, it was the same as my 93 or whatever it was. It was the exact same. It was sweet. He bought it for summer.
Were you guys doing radio with a Zuzu or something, or what pulled you towards that?
I thought it was cool.
I'm
Had
just
big
curious.
tires. And it was a
Hi,
convertible.
I'm Joe Isuzu.
I just thought it was super cool.
Yeah.
Those were great.
They had 30s on them then.
Yeah.
Kind of.
Joe Isuzu's dead, right?
I think we've been down this road.
We've been down this road.
I don't.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. Joe Isuzu's dead. The other guy
Or
is.
not.
Super Dave is dead too.
Yeah.
Those are icons of our time.
Super Dave was bound to happen.
Yeah. How did he survive this long?
Super Dave.
But he tragically, I don't think he died from an accident.
I showed my daughter. Yeah. No, he died. He was old.
Right.
Think
No, not that old. He was just.
Yeah. No, he was old.
Like
yeah,
our
he
age?
was. No.
Super Dave?
Super Dave was.
He died at 62. That's older than us.
I
but-
don't. Yeah,
Google
maybe.
it. We
I'll
got
Google
to
it.
end this one.
Do you want to? You
Now,
want it before
live.
we get done?
I'm curious.
You got to know.
I showed my daughter. My wife and I showed my daughter a Super Dave show
Yeah?
the other day. We were like, "Hey, let's watch this show." And
How
we watched
stupid did it look?
If you don't know that it's coming, it blew her mind. She couldn't believe what she saw.
It's like the movie Jackass, but
It was
a real guy doing real stunts.
She thought it was just a dumb show that we watched when we were kids, so she was just thinking it was a dumb show. And then what happened. So
It is so.
he was
it's-
76 when he died. 2
Oh,
years.
crazy! I didn't realize
2019.
What did he die of?
COVID.
No,
with
it was
with it. not of it.
2019.
So we're younger kids. I don't know about your kids, Shannon, but like my grandkids,
Cancer.
They sit down. There you go. If I'm Super Dave and I find out I've got terminal cancer, I'm gonna go.
He should have done.
I'm gonna go
one
run
final
into
stunt.
a wall head on with my face. I was like, that's the way I got to go.
Nobody would have believed
But
it.
my grandkids sit down with family movie night and they watch things like last week they watched The Sandlot.
Oh yeah.
Even my kids are like too old to watch that, but they're like, this is awesome. And old shows like the original Ghostbusters and things, and they're
Our kids
starting
do a
to
little of that too.
starting to listen to music like Pink Floyd from the 70s. Like, so I asked the question, why do you do that? They're like, because everything out today is crap, most of it. They're like, it's just, I don't like what I'm
I've
seeing.
heard
so they're-
37 songs about being in the club already, and I'm
yeah, it's the same old stuff. So they're like, we want to watch this old stuff. But in turn, we went to the coffee shop the other day, and this young girl that was probably 25 was wearing a Great Space Coaster shirt. And I went, that is awesome, the Great Space Coaster. And she's like,
It was just
I'm sorry, what are you talking
it was just
about?
a printed tee that
Yeah,
she
she
bought.
just looked at me like, what are you talking about? I said, your shirt. She's like, what? Oh, what about it? I'm like, that's the Great Space Coaster. She's like, oh, okay. I'm like, you don't know what it is, do you? No. I'm like, I'm so sad.
I can say this with 100% sincerity. One of the best nights of my life was watching old YouTube videos with my kids of the Great Space Coaster, Sesame Street,
The Banana
Electric
Splits.
Company, the Banana Splits. We just went through and was typewriter. No. We just looked up all that
No
stuff.
news is good news
1, 2,
with
3,
Gary
4, 5,
Gnews.
6, 7, 8, 9, 10,
How you
11,
guys?
12.
You guys are amazing.
It was great.
Their memory recall and stuff.
We had a comment.
Hello, I am Dr. Bunsen Honeydew.
There's a
Say
comment
hello
on
to my
the
pal Kato.
there's a comment on chat today about
Beaker.
about Russ not being human. He
Yeah.
must be an
Yeah.
android because of his memory. Yeah, I'm with you.
Are you an Android or an iOS?
Animal.
All right, that's gonna do it for the after show. Thanks everybody. If you're watching on YouTube right now, click the bell. You don't have to click the bell. The bell's down. Click subscribe.
Do
to the channel.
things that show signs of life.
Subscribe.
How about comment?
Subscribe and comment. The bell.
Ask your
who cares about
questions
the bell?
here.
I
Don't
got-
email me.
I got no bells in my life. I don't have any bells for anything. I get notified of nothing. It's fantastic. But subscribe. That helps us. Thanks, everybody.